Most people think emotional neglect only describes extreme homes. But many adults who feel like their emotions never really mattered grew up in families that looked normal from the outside. The lunches were packed, the homework was checked, the rules were clear, and still their emotional world was quietly ignored. If that's you, your brain almost certainly adapted in ways you can't fully see to help you survive that environment. Studies on young adults with a history of childhood emotional neglect have found lasting changes in how flexibly different brain regions communicate with each other because their nervous system learned to operate in a particular mode that made sense at the time. Whether you're trying to understand your own patterns, or you're raising kids and are determined to do things differently, this one is for you. We'll cover what emotional neglect actually looks like, what research is showing about how it shapes the brain, how those patterns show up in adult life, and what you can start doing for yourself and for your kids to change them. Part 1. What emotional neglect actually looks like. When people hear neglect, they usually picture something dramatic. No one home, no meals, total chaos. Emotional neglect is quieter. It's what happens when your basic physical needs are met, but your emotional needs are consistently missed, minimized, or met with discomfort. You're scared and the response is, "You're fine." You're sad, and the response is, "You're being dramatic." You're angry, and the response is, "Go to your room until you can be nice." The people raising you might have loved you. They might have worked hard, sacrificed, and genuinely wanted you to be okay. But when you brought your inner world, your fear, your hurt, your confusion, the message you got was simple. Emotions are either too much, invisible, or inconvenient. And if you want to stay close to the people you depend on, you learn to tuck those emotions away. That's emotional neglect. Not the absence of love, the absence of emotional recognition. Part 2, how your brain learns from this. Your brain learns from patterns, not single moments. One distracted parent doesn't rewire anything, but hundreds and thousands of moments where your emotional signals don't land, that becomes something your nervous system can't ignore. Researchers studying brain activity in young adults with a history of emotional neglect have found something specific. When people are resting, eyes closed, not doing anything, the brain isn't off. Different regions are still talking to each other, forming networks that assemble, dissolve, and reassemble as your mind wanders. In people without that history, those networks shift. The brain moves between different modes of connection, sometimes more linked up, sometimes more separate. In people who grew up with emotional neglect, the pattern was different. Their brains spent more time locked into one kind of connection. They switched between states less often. Not because the brain is ruined, because it learned to prioritize stability over exploration. That makes a lot of sense when your emotional environment growing up was confusing or invalidating. If you never knew how your caregivers would respond to your feelings, your whole system learned a rule. Don't move too much. Don't shift states too often. Stay in the mode that feels safest. From the outside, that can look like being independent, easygoing, low maintenance. From the inside, it can feel like being stuck. Part 3, how this shows up in your adult life. If you grew up feeling like your emotions didn't matter, some of these might feel familiar. You don't know what you feel until hours or days after something happens. You default to, "I'm fine," even when something is genuinely upsetting. You feel strangely numb in situations where other people get visibly emotional. And then you crash later. You have a hard time shifting from functional mode to vulnerable mode. That last one connects directly to what the research is seeing. If your brain has learned to stay in one emotional mode, shifting into another, going from task-focused to emotionally open, can feel jarring, sometimes unsafe. So you might notice, you can work, parent, plan, and hold everything together. But the moment someone asks, "How are you really?" you shut down or change the subject. You're great at being there for other people's feelings. When it comes to your own, you go blank, or tired, or quietly irritated. You wait until you're completely overwhelmed before asking for help, because turning towards someone while you're in the middle of a feeling doesn't feel like something your body knows how to do. This doesn't mean you're cold. It means your system learned that sharing your emotional state wasn't safe, effective, or welcome, and other people praised you for it. You're so mature. You never cause trouble. You handle everything so well. While something else was forming underneath. I'm the one who doesn't need much. My feelings don't matter here. If I stay in control, I belong. Those beliefs don't just live in your thoughts. They live in how your brain moves, or doesn't, between emotional states. Part 4, what this means for your healing. Your brain did exactly what it was supposed to do. It adapted to the environment it was given. What you're living with now isn't a character flaw. It's a survival strategy that worked. And what was learned can, over time, be updated. When research shows reduced flexibility in the brain's communication patterns after emotional neglect, it's not a life sentence. It's information. It's your system saying, of course shifting into vulnerability feels hard. Of course switching emotional gears feels expensive. You've been practicing the opposite for years. Healing isn't about becoming a completely different person overnight. It's about inviting your brain into slightly more flexible patterns over and over in ways that feel safe enough to tolerate. 3 places to start. 1. Notice your default mode. Start by tracking when you slip into that stuck one-mode state. Maybe it's the neutral, competent, I've got it handled version of you. Ask yourself without judgment, when do I slip into this most automatically? What kinds of emotions get left outside when I'm here? You're not trying to change anything yet. Just notice that the mode exists. Awareness is a small act of flexibility on its own. 2. Practice tiny state shifts. Big emotional shifts feel overwhelming when your system isn't used to them, so start very small. After a stressful interaction, instead of jumping straight back into work, try a short pause. Put a hand on your chest. Take 3 slower breaths. Ask yourself what word fits your inner state right now. Even if the answer is just tense or numb or I don't know, these small moments send a message. It's safe to check in. It's safe to look inward for a few seconds. Over time, those pauses add up. You're asking your brain to shift gears just a little more often. 3. Let one trusted person in slowly. Emotional neglect taught your system. When I bring emotions to people, nothing good happens. One of the most corrective experiences is having even a single relationship where that old rule gets gently contradicted. This doesn't start with big disclosures. It might look like telling a friend, I'm more tired than I look today. Telling a partner, I don't know what I feel yet, but something about that conversation is sticking with me. Telling a therapist, I'm not good at this, I need you to go slow. The goal isn't drama. The goal is repetition. Your nervous system needs many small, consistent experiences of, I showed a bit more of myself and I stayed safe, to start updating those old rules. Part 5. If you're parenting now, if you grew up feeling like your emotions didn't matter and now you're raising kids, you're doing something genuinely hard. You're asking your nervous system to offer something it never consistently received. 2 shifts that can help. Come closer during the feeling. Many parents who experienced emotional neglect find themselves stepping back when their child is in the middle of a big feeling and stepping in only once the child has calmed down. Not because they don't care, because intense emotions feel unfamiliar or overwhelming. But from a child's perspective, that teaches a painful rule. I get connection after I shut my feelings off. When your child is crying, frustrated, or scared, try moving toward them, sit next to them, crouch down. Name what you see without trying to fix it right away. Let your presence be the comfort before the solution. You're showing their nervous system. When you have big feelings, I come closer. Not just coping children who grow up with emotional neglect learn that being low maintenance is how you keep adults close. If that was your experience, you might find yourself praising your child most when they're not asking for much. Flip that. When your child brings you a feeling or a need, try, I'm so glad you told me you were scared. It means a lot that you came to me with this. You let me see you were upset and we got through it together. You're rewarding their willingness to reach, not just their ability to hold it together. That teaches a different rule. When I share what's inside me, it matters. Part 6. If you grew up feeling like your emotions didn't matter, your brain and your behavior make sense. Pulling inward made sense. Staying in one emotional mode made sense. Minimizing your own needs made sense. Research is showing that emotional neglect doesn't just leave memories. It shapes how flexibly the brain moves between emotional states. And that flexibility, the research is also showing, isn't fixed. Every time you pause long enough to name what you're feeling, you're asking your brain to do something new. Every time you let one person see a little more of you, you're writing over an old rule. Every time you move toward your child's feelings instead of away, you're giving them a different story than the one you were given. The past shaped your nervous system. It doesn't have to be the whole story. Your emotions mattered then. They still do now. If you found this helpful, like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one.